world, welcome back. Since it is now, the end of February, and by the time this video gets posted, it will most certainly be March, and everyone is starting to post their March setups. That seems like a great time to finally get my February setup posted. Yeah, we'll talk more about that. TLDR, I'm just kind of struggling with life. And before we get into my February setup, I'm going to do a quick flip through of January, which I did actually film, and then the footage was absolutely terrible, so I didn't use that or post it. And we're just going with February at the end of the month, basically in March. Oh boy. Okay, here we go. The theme that I was kind of going with was a long, dark winter's night kind of a thing, which is more of a feeling than a theme exactly. Basically, what I wanted to do was use this Crayola Super Tips marker. It's sort of a deep midnight blue, and I've thought it was absolutely gorgeous since I bought the set of markers, but I haven't had an opportunity to use it in a setup before, and I kind of just based a theme around this color. That's pretty much what I did. And I did a little bit of watercoloring. It looks pretty messy. I'm mostly satisfied with it, but it does look kind of messy, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a few pages. And then just some collages and stickers throughout. I don't know at what point my setups turned into Jenny journals, but that's definitely where I feel I've ended up. This is sort of a really normal setup for me. I don't like to use a calendar, even though I like to have a calendar for reference. And in January, I decided to include the moon phases, which I didn't do anything with, but sort of adds a nice little aesthetic that's pleasing to look at. And the quote that I used was, "Winter is a season of preparation and recovery," which felt deeply appropriate both for winter and the beginning of a new year. And you'll also see here and throughout the setup, I've covered up some things that are personal. I still have not added pictures here. I'm actually going to do that after I film this intro. But this is the Milestones page that I use for some memory keeping for my kid. Over here, I just jot down any little milestones. Like January was actually the first time that my kid got a fever, which was absolutely terrifying, but it's the sort of thing that I may want to remember, in 20, 30 years. And then I would include like 4 or 5 little pictures of them throughout the month over here so I can see how they've grown. So the duct tape here is because I am really rough with my journals, and this always happens to me. With both of my previous journals, this has happened where it's just split completely. And so there's one signature over here and all of the rest are over here, and it's just like completely split. And I decided to fix it with some Disney Princess duct tape. So this wasn't here during the month of January, but you can still get the idea of my gigantic, monstrous tracker. I started using this tracker in October, I think, last year. And it's been really effective for me. I included a little quote over here. "The steps you take don't have to be big, they just have to be in the right direction." This is, again, a pretty standard spread for me. I've got sleep and mood. I've been using this sleep tracker, I started using this in June after my kid was born, because I was sleeping at pretty irregular times, and it's been pretty good for me, honestly. And for the mood tracker, I had no idea what sort of mood tracker I wanted to do in January, and basically I just ran out of time and decided to do something similar to things I've seen other bullet journals do on YouTube, and I actually really like how it turned out. And then this is my editorial calendar for my review channel, which is a horrible embarrassment for me because I haven't posted anything. It's been 2.5 months, something really embarrassing. Like I said, I'm just kind of really struggling through life. It's hard being a grown-up sometimes, and I have a brand new appreciation for parents and moms, and just I am really struggling to balance my responsibilities as an adult human, my responsibilities as a mom, taking care of my kid, and my responsibilities to myself to pursue my passions and hobbies and all these personal creative things that I want to do. I'm really struggling to balance all of those. I don't know. We'll talk more about this. And then that gets us into my weeklies. It's really important for me personally to have my entire week on a single spread so I can see all of the days at once. So this is a really normal looking weekly spread for me. I don't need a whole lot of space for planning for individual days. Instead, what I do for my to-dos and tasks and stuff is a rolling weekly, which I learned about this from Plant-Based Bride. And when I saw her video where she's talking about it, it just really clicked with me and has been absolutely fantastic for me. I love this. In general, I only have like a couple of things to note in that are like day specific, whether that's an event or a task. And overall, mostly what I have is tasks that have to get done in a week, and it doesn't matter what day they happen. If you'd like to learn more about the rolling weekly, or I believe it may also be called the Alistair method, I've seen something called the Alistair method in reference to a future log, and it's kind of the same principle. But I will link Plant-Based Bride's video talking in depth about the rolling weekly down in the description. And then I use the open space for just like notes or additional lists or journaling, whatever. In this case, it was just a list of stuff and some tracking for a TV show. Next week, here I added an extra space for meal planning that I basically didn't use. This was a snow week. And then I did a spread for some journaling and collage, which I really love doing. And the little quote I added down here is, "Art washes away from the soul the dust of everyday life." I wanted to try something different with this weekly. I wanted to try something more like some of the things that I've seen other people on YouTube do. And on the one hand, I like the sort of collaging and the lettering that I was able to accomplish. On the other hand, I hate how it's sort of randomly spaced on the page. That really bothers me. So for this week, I made it more evenly spaced and a little cleaner and more minimalist, which means I didn't have as much time or energy to make it pretty and collaged and how I normally would, which is why it looks like this. Still not the biggest fan of this type of setup. I'll probably continue to play around with this sort of thing, but for the moment, nah. Then this was just a page that I had left open for journaling and ended up using for planning for March. And then this is my last week of January, and this is one of my favorite weekly spreads that I have ever done. It started with an idea to just use that blue on the top and sort of encase each day up here in that really pretty color, and then I just kept carrying it further and further across the page and just kept drawing, and it ended up with this. And then I added some gold stars, and I just absolutely love it. The other thing that I did a little differently this week was added a space for each day's priority, which I actually really like, but I don't know if it's very helpful for me. I didn't exactly go back and reference that a lot, but I also really like the idea, so that's probably something that I will play with in the future. And that is my last page for January. After that, we get into February. And for that, I'm going to turn you over to the voiceover. Welcome to the voiceover portion of this video. I had such a difficult time coming up with the theme I wanted to use for February. I'm really not a Valentine's person. I don't have anything against Valentine's, especially sort of this wave of doing self-love and self-care focused Valentine's things, but I'm just still really not into it. And then, I don't know, I was struck with inspiration and I decided to do a Dungeons and Dragons theme for my February setup. D&D / tabletop RPGs in general, because tabletop RPGs in general and D&D in specific are a really huge, important part of my life, and it's something that I've seen, I think maybe one or two themed setups on YouTube for bullet journals, but really haven't seen a lot, and I wanted to contribute. Honestly, this theme is the entire reason that I'm even bothering to post this video basically a month late, because it's something that I really hadn't seen a lot on YouTube or just in bullet journaling in general, and I wanted to put that out there for anyone like me who is into D&D and maybe wanted to see something like that. So the quote that I'm adding here is actually something a friend of mine said. He's in my gaming group, and he said, every time you make a new character, you learn something about yourself, which for anyone who has experience playing D&D or another RPG, I think you can definitely relate to that. That's part of why it's such a big part of my life. It's a way to express myself and maybe express parts of myself that aren't as easy to access or show on a regular basis, and also just learn new things about myself and the people that I play with too. I play with a group of friends pretty regularly, and I have for the past, oh my gosh, have I been playing for almost 10 years? I think I've been playing for almost 10 years, something like that. The other thing that was a lot of fun in setting up this theme for me was changing the names of the different sections that I have in my monthly setup. So instead of what I would normally call appointments and reminders, I have missions and quests, and you'll see a couple other things like that throughout the spread, which is kind of cheesy and kind of dumb, but also I had so much fun with it. I think that's really the mark of a successful setup, is when you just have so much fun building out the idea and then carrying that idea throughout the month. At least that's how it works for me. What I'm doing here to color in the dice on my cover page is the sort of watercolory effect. This is, again, a thing that I learned from Plant-Based Bride, and this is actually the only Tombow marker that I own. Aside from this clear blender, I don't own any other Tombows because they are expensive. I'm also incorporating, like you can see, this the scroll for my header and then some parchment effects, and using that same Tombow blender watercolory effect on the edges to make the parchment pop a little bit more. This was a lot of fun. This is something I've seen a lot of people do on YouTube, and it was something I had a lot of fun playing with and figuring out how to do. I am absolutely in love with these scroll headers now, by the way. and will have to restrain myself from using them absolutely everywhere. They are so much fun. This spread, by the way, is my Milestones page, like you saw in my January flip through. This is where I do memory keeping for milestones that my baby hits, and then some pictures throughout the month as well. This spread that I am putting together right now is my massive habit tracker, which is not exactly so much habits as it is just like habits and to-dos, kind of. It's a bit of everything, because I've got a section for my morning routine, a section for quote adulting. I've got stuff that I want to track to be doing for my kid, like making sure they've got their vitamins, and then a section of self-care. I actually ended up changing this for March, since as I'm recording this voiceover, I've already done my March setup. Cross my fingers that will be up in the very near future, but I'm excited to talk about that in that video. The cute thing that I did here is, instead of calling it like a habit tracker, which I basically never do, or any other kind of tracker, I called it daily actions, because it's like the little actions you can do each day. Yeah, I'm a big nerd. That's just who I am. And I printed out these really cool little standard traveling equipment doodles from the internet to add here. I actually didn't end up really utilizing this tracker, which is part of why I changed it up for March, which I'm a little sad about, because I really love how this looks, and I really love when a spread like this is really useful. But you know what, that's what happens, and that's why bullet journaling is so cool, is you can just change things up when they stop working for you. Now moving into the sleep and mood trackers for February. I titled my sleep tracker Long Rest, Short Rest. Again, just nerding out with this setup. And you can probably tell from my pencil sketch on the right-hand page, but my mood tracker for February, because what other kind of mood tracker are you going to do for a D&D themed setup, is a whole bunch of dice, which, holy cow, was such a pain. I never want to do that again. Or if I do that again, I'm not doing D12s and D20s. I don't really like how the D10s look, because they're grossly disproportionate to the other dice in terms of size, but they look okay. You can kind of see the 12s and 20s are so janky looking. I just don't like them at all. But I did discover that I love drawing D8s in a bullet journal in that grid format. It works really well for drawing D8s, so that was cool. And moving into my editorial calendar, the massive embarrassment of this setup and my video. Yeah, so like I mentioned, just, excessively struggling with life and having a difficult time accomplishing anything, be that like productive adulting or, personal projects that I might want to accomplish. The intended purpose of this spread, as you'll see it come together, is planning out the due dates for projects. So to use this, I would add the due dates for like when a video is supposed to go live, or when an email newsletter is supposed to go out, and then work backwards to plan out when I need to complete/work on each step for the process to make that happen. Anyway, this could potentially be a useful spread for someone else in the world, so this is my editorial calendar. Enjoy. And finally, moving into the last spread of my February setup, my first weekly. This is still a pretty standard format, similar to the ones I was using throughout January. Just adding a couple touches here and there to make it a little bit more D&D themed, like I did my rolling weekly with a parchment effect, as you'll see, and just a couple little touches here and there. And here we have the final flip through of this setup. Thank you so much for watching. Let's all just ignore that this is a month late and focus on, look, it's a D&D theme. That's cool, right? Thank you very much for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you're interested. If you also like Dungeons & Dragons and tabletop role-playing games, let me know down in the comments. I would love to talk about gaming with anyone who is interested. And hopefully you will be seeing me again very soon with my March setup, which is already filmed. So cross your fingers, wish me luck, and until next time.